Our top 5 this time around is top 5 Sean Penn movies. Now, I left it up to you to decide whether or not you wanted to go performances or movies. I've personally gone for movies. So if I had to rank the movies that he's been in, that's what I've gone for. I have kind of gone off performances as well because, well, I'll just say there's one movie in particular. I'll just say outright what it is. It's The Thin Red Line, which I personally think is one of the best war movies ever made. But when I was looking at my list, I had 9 movies altogether that were vying for my top 5. Thin Red Line was obviously one of them. But this was the only film on the list of 9 where I was like, I remember it being a great film. I know that for a fact because of the way it's directed, the way it's shot, and all this, that, and the other. But I honestly could not remember what Sean Penn did in it. I can see him, I can see his character, and I can remember one scene between him and another character across the table, but I don't remember him being in it enough to warrant me putting it on my top 5 list. And that could very well be that he wasn't in it a right lot, because Terrence Malick does have this habit of shooting, there were actors who were cast in that film who got top billing at one point on posters and stuff, and then they weren't even in the film. So yeah, there is that. So I left Thin Red Line out. It would actually make my top 5 if we were purely going off movies, but as this is specifically a top 5 Sean Penn, I didn't feel comfortable enough putting it on because I honestly couldn't remember him being in it. So
okay, why don't I go first? And before I go first, I looking through Sean Penn's filmography, I have seen a lot of his poorer performances, I think, movies, and a lot of his performances where he's been lauded, I have missed. So I found it really hard to put a list together because I was like, I'm not putting that on it. I am not putting that on the list. There's no way. And which has ended up with my number 5 movie, which I can barely remember. But I know that I really like this movie. And my number 5 is The Thin Red Line, which I haven't seen for about 20 years, but I remember it really affecting me for the time after I saw it. Again, I know Penn is in it. I know he's like the first sergeant or something like that, or some kind of role, and I just remember the movie being like something that just crept under my skin and stuck with me. But again, I do remember the rest of the performances on my list. This one's just... That's the thing.
No, Thin Red Line is a great film. It's one of the best war films ever made. It would make my top 10 war films ever made. It's just, what did Penn do in it? I have no idea. So, okay. My number 5 then is The Assassination of Richard Nixon. So this is based on a true story about a guy who basically just flipped out and tried to get on a plane and shoot the plane up. His intention was to attack it. It was to hijack it and use it to. I think he was going to try and crash into the White House or something like that. But he fails miserably because at the end of the day he was a sad, pathetic man who basically just lost the plot, couldn't handle life, and decided to go out in a blaze of glory. It's a good character study. I think Sean Penn's performance in it is really great. Naomi Watts gives some real good support as well. It's brilliantly directed. There was another film out around the same time, just before it actually, that had a very similar setup and a very similar ending. Honestly can't remember what that film is now, but I do remember that watching Richard Nixon at that time kind of made me... I didn't appreciate it as much on first viewing because I was like, that's just so much like that other film. But then doing the background research on it, looking into the story, seeing that actually it is based on fact and this, that and the other, it did make me appreciate it more. When I went back and watched it, I was able to just come at it on its own terms. And on that viewing, I did think that Sean Penn's performance was quite outstanding. Really good stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. My number 4 is The Game, David Fincher's movie. I love The Game. I think it's just a terrific movie, and it is primarily a Michael Douglas vehicle, but Sean Penn is there in a very small role, but it's a pivotal one. He's there in, I think it's 3 points throughout the movie. He meets him to instigate the whole process, and he's very calm and relaxed, and he's pulled his life together, because you get this through the conversation. And the next time you see him, he is terrified beyond belief at what's happening, so you get a complete different character, and then at the end you get the impetus for Michael Douglas' character to get that needed push that he needs. And it's just, it's the same character in 3 completely different headspaces in very short scenes, and they are just sold remarkably well. I think The Game's probably one of you can't say David Fincher's got underrated movies, but The Game's another one of a great one that he did.
Okay, so my number 4 is Carlito's Way. So this is another Brian De Palma film. Obviously, the guy who did Untouchables. I actually prefer Carlito's Way to the Untouchables. That could have a lot to do with the fact that I am a big Al Pacino fan. I do like this as a gangster movie. I think it kind of holds its own really with Scarface. I probably do prefer Scarface overall, to be honest. But yeah, Sean Penn plays this kind of snivelling wretch of a lawyer in it, with this wacky kind of Art Garfunkel hairdo. I always remember that. But yeah, I remember his character in it. I remember just how leechy he is, and where the story goes with it, with betrayal and things like that. And yeah, it's just really great gangster movie. If you have seen Scarface and The Untouchables, both Brian De Palma films, and you've not seen this, do check it out, because I think, yeah, the 3 of those together are a pretty good triple bill.
Yeah. My number 3 is Spicoli in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which I think the performance is elevated because he never plays anything like that ever again. And when you look at some of his other performances and then you get back to that, you realise how good a stoner, a surfer it is, because he doesn't come across like that in any interviews or anywhere else. And he gives this dumb idiot a sense of heart. Almost in his conversations with Mr. Hand are just some of the best things in the movie. As you kind of feel his pain at not being able to go to prom, or the unknowing realisation of ordering pizzas into class is not the right thing to do. But I just think it's a fun performance.
There's a bit of a Bill and Ted vibe about him, isn't there?
Yeah, but it's more natural than Bill and Ted feels a little bit more hyper. This feels kind of like,
definitely.
I can understand that kind of movement.
Okay, so okay, my number 3 is Mystic River. A really great Clint Eastwood film. It's dark. It's not an easy watch. It's not something, you don't ever sit there thinking, I'll just bang Mystic River on. Boom. You've really got to be in the right frame of mind. But everyone in this film is fantastic. Tim Robbins, Laura Linney is great in this, but Sean Penn as well. So Sean Penn plays the husband to Laura Linney's character, and we actually see that he's a bit of a gangster type in this. He's kind of head of essentially a crime family kind of thing. And we see that he's a man to be feared. We think that he kind of rules the roost, and it's only like as we get to the end of the film, towards the end of the film, that we realise that actually he ain't the one who calls the shots. It's the Laura Linney character. She's basically the head of the house. She's a great manipulator, and he is part of that. He's part of that manipulation. So if there's something she wants, he ends up doing it. So it's just a really great performance, that kind of dichotomy of those two aspects of the character. and just expertly directed by Clint Eastwood when he was on his golden streak. This was the time when, like, I can't remember what order they were in, but Mystic River, Gran Torino, $1 Million Baby, and there was another one as well. There was like 4 around about the same time, like straight after one another. He just kept on banging them out, and they were just like, man, how is a guy this old still putting out films this good consecutively? For me, that was his golden period as a director, at least. But Mystic River, number 3.
Speaking of manipulators, my number 2 is the snivelling weasel from Carlito's Way. This guy who will say or do anything to get people to do what he wants. If it means breaking down, blubbering like a baby to get that help that he needs, he'll do that. If it's pushing somebody in a direction that he wants, he'll do that. If we're looking at the movie, Carlito's Way is a fantastic movie. And I think, like yourself, it's probably one I prefer to Scarface. Now, I'm not sure where the movies actually rank up to each other, but I think Scarface was just pushed into everybody's face at a certain period of time. It was just constantly referenced, constantly there, and I think Carlito's Way gave us a sort of better character in that. But I think Sean Penn's a big part to the movie as well, just being that complete tool that he is.
Yeah, I mean, it's been about 15 years since I've seen Carlito's Way. So it's quite something that I can remember so much about it. I think that, to have seen a film so long ago and yet it's still that fresh in the mind, it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, just while we're talking about, or we have been talking about the Gangster Squad and the Untouchables, you had Carlito's Way, and I don't know if you've ever seen the Colin Farrell movie, London Boulevard. I
have, yeah. I wasn't a fan.
It was a complete rip-off of Carlito's Way. I don't know if you noticed that.
I didn't, to be honest.
Right from the whole opening ending thing as well, in the movie.
Right.
Yeah, that was crap.
Yeah,
anyway.
It wasn't good, not at all. I do like Colin Farrell quite a lot, but not even he could save that. Okay, so my number 2, pardon me. My number 2 is The Game. Big David Fincher fan. He's one of my top 10 directors. I went to see this film on my own when I bunked off school.
Right.
I bunked off school 3 times in my tenure when I was at school. One of those times was to go and see 12 Monkeys with a friend. Another time was to go and see The Game on my own. When I got into the theatre, there was one kind of chubby guy sat about 3 rows behind me. I distinctly remember that for some reason. And that was it. But I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Your third time, Brian?
The third time was just I stayed on the school grounds, but I didn't want to go to class. So me and a friend just kind of hung out under the stairs in one of the blocks. So, yeah, a bit lame. But
curiosity get the better of me. I had to know.
So, I really loved it. It's kind of like a modern day retelling of the Scrooge story. But yeah, without the ghosts. Instead, you get just like a lot of mayhem visited upon this guy instead. Sean Penn, like you said, those 3 sequences, they're very small, but they're memorable. You remember him as a presence in this movie. And particularly that second sequence when he comes and he's all hysterical, like you said. It's a really great performance. I always remember that scene. And I always remember the line where they think I'm an effing pinata, and it's just the way he says it and stuff. But at this point I didn't really know the name of David Fincher. Like I'd seen Seven, loved it. Alien 3, not so much. So I didn't go into this film as a David Fincher fan. I saw his name come up on the screen and it wasn't like, oh yeah, David Fincher, he did Seven. I just watched it as a film on its own merits. No kind of, I didn't bring anything to the table in that regard, and I just loved it. I bought it on DVD. I made my parents watch it because I was like, this is an awesome film. You got to see it. My dad liked it. My mum liked it. So, yeah, it is. It's one that I do revisit. I do think, like you say, it is an underrated Finch film, if there is such a thing, like you say. Yeah, I definitely think when people do ranking videos, it maybe deserves to be a little bit higher. I think there's. I'm not going to say any more than that actually, because I'm going to I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it at that. So
okay. My number one Sean Penn performance is Casualties of War. Now, I watched this recently again, and I love the character because he's like a very young, I think he's supposed to be 23 in the movie. He's a leader of a platoon, and at the start he loses a friend. His comrade is killed by insurgents almost. It's like a small village that starts shooting at them after befriending them. And he is just lost. This breaks him completely and utterly breaks him. And he makes the choice that these people aren't good. He's not good. This whole situation's not good. And if there's no ramifications for anything, he can be as deplorable and as disgusting as he wants because nothing is going to happen. And it's that loss of humanity in the character that really comes through with his choice to deliberately set out to kidnap a girl from a village and to rape and murder her. There's no duality within his moral cognitive ability here, that this is what he is going to do, and he's going to force the rest of them to take part in it, whether they want to or not. And it's just seeing that character that becomes so morally bankrupt because of the world round about him, because of the situation he's been pushed into. Casualties of War is one of these movies that you never hear anybody talking about, and it's just brilliant. It's just really brilliant.
Yeah, and it's another Brian De Palma film, and I've seen it once, and I found the experience so harrowing, as you should, that I've kind of never gone back to it again. But I've always had it in my memory, and it, when people ask me to recommend war films, it is one that I do recommend, with a warning, of course. It's not for the faint of heart. But yeah, I remember Penn in that film, and it was a bit of a departure for Michael J. Fox as well. Like I turned it on late one night. It was on Channel 4 late one night, and I'm like, what's this? Michael J. Fox in a war film? Is this going to be like MASH or something like that? And so I watched it, and then it goes off the rails a bit, and then a bit more, and then you're just like, man alive. And then you have that rape scene, and you're just like, and you're so with the Michael J. Fox character, and you're so fearful for him as well, like, because just it is a great film. It's probably not the kind of film that you're gonna repeatedly watch again and again, but it's definitely worth a watch, and it's definitely worth a mention when discussing particularly underrated war movies.
Yeah.
Okay, so my number one Sean Penn film, both for performance and just film as a whole, this is one of my top 5 movies of all time, is Dead Man Walking. I absolutely love this film. So it's based on a true story, and it's one of the few in which I've actually read the book. And Tim Robbins does an absolutely blinding job adapting the book. He's really faithful to the book, in tone and spirit and whatnot. He changes a few things around, like the method of the death scene. Like in the film, it's lethal injection. In real life, it was electric chair. Like I can understand why he's done that. You can't get like the final moments with that character. You can't get the kind of pathos you get if it's suddenly flipping a switch and. But the book is. I would recommend anybody reading the book. If you can read the book, Dead Man's Walking by the nun Sister Prajean, and still support the death penalty afterwards, then all fair play to you. This film does not make me support the death penalty. The book makes me support it even less. But it is a film about the societal responsibility of rehabilitating and even granting forgiveness to those who've done and committed some of the most heinous crimes, and looking at where these people come from. You know, statistically speaking, the vast majority of people who are on death row, and I mean the vast majority of people who are on death row, all come from uneducated backgrounds in slum type areas where they can't afford proper trials, and this, that and the other. But it's a very political film. It's a very spiritual film. It's obviously driven by a character who's a nun, you know, so she's coming at it from... She's not getting this guy off, you know. That's not what the film is about. It's not that kind of film where at the last minute he gets a stay of execution. It's about her trying to get him to accept responsibility for what he did before he goes to meet his maker. She's trying to get him to ask for forgiveness and accept that he was guilty for what he did, instead of making excuses, instead of shouting hatred with his dying breath, but to actually know that he has someone in her who is a face of love despite everything else, and it's so touching, it's so gripping. It's just a drama, you know. There's no big action set pieces in it. It's all conversations with people. It's not one-sided. We get to see the different families. And again, this was a thing in the book where one of the families of his victim, of his victims, kind of came to her and was really enraged at her because she'd gone to see this guy, and yet she'd never gone to see them. You know, and it was in that moment where she'd kind of realised what a mistake she'd made, because this was the first time she'd ever done this. It was the first time she'd been sent to a death row inmate, and they put that in the film. You know, this moment between her and this guy, and you so relate to him. You know, you could make a film like this where you do create such sympathy for this guy who's on death row that you actually forget about what he's done and how that's affected the lives of the others. But Robbins doesn't avoid that. He doesn't shy away from that. We get to see all sides and the destruction that's been caused in these people's lives and how it affects them. And I just think it's a brilliantly drawn out film on every level. The script is flawless. The direction is brilliant. It's got beautiful cinematography from Roger Deakins, who's my favourite cinematographer. I cannot fault this film. A great soundtrack by Bruce Springsteen. You know, I love it. 5 stars all the way. One of my favourite films of all time, and it moves me every time I see it. So,
okay. Yeah, we haven't. I've not seen that one. I'm going to have to rectify it at some point.
Sean Penn's performance is brilliant. I did all that spiel just then, and given this is a top 5 Sean Penn, I do just want to say, he should have won an Oscar for it. I thought it was a brilliant performance, absolutely brilliant, really gripping, just sucks you into his character every step of the way. So.